In this land, people sell even hope by the pound of dust. A man paid exactly $1 for a dying donkey, hung the coin on the saddle ring like a question. The wind carried the smell of buried ash, a dry well, fire coming. I stood watching. What remained was water, silence, and the way a hand rested on a scorched mark. The horse market sat on the edge of town, wooden posts, lined into uneven square pens like a row of teeth. Old boards, nails sticking out, frayed rope. Fine dust rode the wind and settled on everything. Handwritten price boards, the tin lip of a water barrel, and the boot edges of the men standing watch. Noon hadn't come, yet the heat was already biting the skin. Somewhere, metal struck metal, dry as bone. I leaned on a post, peered through a crack in the rail. The donkey lay right against the left fence line. Ribs bare. Coat matted. Patches shrunk tight, like forgotten rags. Its eyes weren't fully closed. A cloudy slit, trying to open a narrow gap. Each time a fly landed and lifted, the eyelid only trembled, then stilled. The halter bit into the jaw. The hemp smooth from constant rubbing on skin. The seller stood inside, back to a post, fingers working the rope. A faded check shirt, sweat marking a dark streak from armpit to flank. He wasn't calling the donkey. He was calling the other horses. Men crowded a red-haired stallion, white-toothed. They flicked hooves, pried lips, spoke half-words. Only here was empty, where the donkey lay. The man appeared without noise. His boots stopped at the fence line, hat pulled low. I saw only a sun-browned bridge of nose, a chin streaked with dry white powder, like lime. He didn't ask the price, didn't test the teeth, didn't tug the tail. He stood for a while, fingers touching the fence tip like touching something alive. Dust clung to his fingertips. He brushed once, the dust breaking apart like flour. The wind shifted, blew down from the north, brought a strange smell, not crushed grass or barn manure. A dry, heavy smell like ash buried in sand for years. I breathed it in. It caught in my throat, going neither up nor down. The donkey opened its eyes a fraction more. Its ears twitched slightly. Not toward the seller, not toward the man. Toward the wind. "Won't make the night," the seller said, as if for greeting. His voice was flat, no threat. No pity. Just one line. Then he turned to slap the red stallion's flank to raise dust, so the men could admire it. Someone metal's touch, slipping past the hum of flies. The rope slackened. The donkey didn't rise. A front leg moved, dragging a short line in the dirt, showing a damp gray layer underneath. That dry smell crossed my nose again. The man said nothing. He bent, ran his hand along the rope, checked the knot, unhurried. Black smeared his fingertips. He wiped it on his pants. A black streak stayed there, stubborn. I looked into the animal's eye. There was nothing of pleading, nothing of surrender. Only a cloudy eye holding a narrow gap to the world outside. Its ears kept the same angle. The wind touched the ear edge like touching a dry leaf, trembled a little, then lay still. The man stepped around the back. His horse's old saddle lashed on, the leather yellowed, 2 iron rings at the edge pitted. He pulled the dollar he'd just spent from his pocket, threaded it through the right ring. Whether his hand shook or it was the wind, I couldn't tell. The coin scraped the iron, making a very small sound. He brushed the dust from the coin's face once, not rubbing, just enough to show half a circle of light. The seller turned back, wiping sweat from his neck. "Your choice," he said. "It hasn't eaten in 3 days." The man lifted his head, looking straight, but not at the seller, looking past him as if following the smell of the wind. A long beat. Then he turned away. No handshake. No asking for better rope. No calling for help. He took the rope himself, lifted lightly. The donkey raised its head a little, as if the rope was its own neck. Men nearby shifted their feet, leaving fresh boot prints over old dust. Someone spat. It half evaporated. Another horse in another pen gave a short neigh. A few children ran past, laughing, then fell quiet when they saw the donkey lying there. A small dog sniffed around, paused at its hind hoof, nosed for a long while, then left. Its tail hung like a wet rope. A tin water barrel stood at the end of the lane. The water surface was murky with dust and horse whiskers. The man led the donkey there, step by step. No urging, no shout. Just holding the rope level, enough to keep its head from dragging to the ground. At the barrel's edge, he stopped. The donkey lowered its head close to the water. It didn't drink. It sniffed. Its breath touched the surface, making a small ripple, then still. The man didn't push, just stood, hand loose, as if keeping the place for its choice. I saw him tilt his head, listening, not to people, to the wind. The ash smell passed again, stronger now. Someone at the far end burning old straw? Or from up there? "Man." Half a ticket, blurred ink. The man ignored it. The paper dropped, caught on my shoe. I bent to pick it up. The ink had run. Only the words "received" could be read. I tucked it back into the fence gap. No one looked for it. 2 men at the Red Stallion's pen talked about the lines on its foreleg. They tried to bend its knee for reflex. The horse kicked, dust sprayed, sticking wet at the corner of one man's mouth. He swore, low. The sound drifted away, lost among the other dry sounds. Didn't touch the place where the donkey stood. The man set his hand on the matted hair at its neck. Didn't stroke, just placed it. The weight was just enough. The donkey didn't flinch. It blinked once, slow, then stopped. The man drew back his hand, the smell of sunburnt hair clinging to skin. He looked at his hand, no expression. When he turned back, the dollar on the saddle ring caught a faint gleam. The light lasted less than a breath before it died. I remembered a mortar in my mother's kitchen long ago. Wooden. The rim cracked, the split deepening each dry season. It was still used. No one praised it as strong. No one said it was near breaking. When there was no rice, it sat silent, mouth turned toward the dark corner. When there was rice, it pounded, thump, thump, steady, unhurried. I don't know why I thought of the mortar then. Maybe because of the coin's ring on iron. Maybe because of the dry smell. Maybe because of the donkey. Or maybe because the man said nothing. An old woman pulled a handcart past, selling cornmeal cakes. The charcoal stove in the tin box gave off the sweet smell of flour burning at the edges. She set the cart down, adjusted the pot's handle. Thin smoke rose, stretched by the wind, then broke. She looked at the donkey, said nothing, didn't offer. Looked, then pushed the cart on, one wheel catching in a crack. She lifted, dropped, kept going. The man stepped back once. I thought he would leave. But he only changed the rope to his other hand. Left to right, small, careful movements. He adjusted the knot at the donkey's jaw, loosened it by 1 finger's width. The rope slid a little, gave a small sound at the ring. The donkey breathed, a long breath with sound, not deep, just enough to raise the ribs by 1 bone. A little girl had been standing behind me, her hands sticky with sugar. She asked, "Mister?" "Is it dead yet?" I didn't answer. The sugar melted on her skin, catching dust. She licked it, made a face, then ran off. The slap of plastic sandals lasted a while, then stopped. The wind leaned fully north. That corner lay beyond the market, beyond the fence, somewhere on a ridge of gray dirt I'd never noticed. The man tightened his own horse's reins, checked the hook in the bed of an old pickup parked against the fence. Paint peeling from the bed, showing metal turned brown. A wooden-handled shovel lay still inside, the blade worn round. He set the donkey's lead on the hook. Didn't pull, just set it. Then stood, waiting. No one urged. The seller didn't mention pen fees. No quick steps. No, "Let's go." I heard him click his tongue very softly, the way you call an old dog. The donkey slowly drew in its legs. Its head moved ahead of its body by a little. Each step the knees shook, but the step came out. It stood. Not straight, not pretty. Enough. The man leaned, lifted the rope higher to ease its neck. 2 steps. 3. To the water barrel's rim. He let it choose. It sniffed, longer than before. Then took a small sip. Sounded like someone spooning water into a sick person's mouth. 1 more sip. Enough to wet the lips. It stopped. He raised its head gently so the water wouldn't run back into its nose. A few drops clung to the edge of its mouth, rolled down, dragging a line of dust along the jaw. The line looked like rain on dirty glass. Only here there was no glass. Only skin, hair, dust, and the smell the wind kept bringing. I took my hand off the post. The sweat mark it left was a dark streak on the wood. New dust had already settled there. Fast. Everything catches dust quickly in this land. People say that when cleaning their houses. Today I didn't think of home. I looked at the $1 coin hanging on his saddle ring. It lay still, made no sound now. I remembered the seller's line, just thrown out, "Won't make the night." That line fell to the ground, rolled under the water barrel, and was gone. He slung the rope over his shoulder, the way someone might sling a wet cloth, not for weight, for cold, or for awkwardness. I didn't know. His face showed nothing. The donkey breathed. Its ears still pointed north. The wind dragged another line of scent across the yard. Someone coughed dryly. A sparrow dropped to the water barrel, drank once, then flew. The sky pale, stained like a rag washed too many times. No sign of anything coming except the smell of buried ash. Skin, no blood, just a white mark. I wiped it. The white mark vanished under dust. The man pulled the rope very lightly, like knocking on a door. The donkey lifted its foot. 1, 2. A fresh hoof line drawn across old ground, cutting through countless other lines. No one stopped it. No one wished it well. No one missed it. The dollar on the saddle ring touched iron with a sound softer than insects. Then still. I stood there, watching the man's back and the donkey's neck. The wind kept bringing the strange smell, dry, heavy, like ash buried under sand for years, stirred by some unseen hand. No one knew whose hand. No need to know. In this land, people usually just smell it, then go quiet. With things like that, words add nothing. They leave only a space. The exact size of a $1 coin on a pitted iron ring. We left the market by the dirt road leading south. Dust settled in a thin layer along the edge of his old pickup. The shovel handle in the bed tapped lightly each time the truck hit a pothole. The donkey followed behind, rope slack, head lower than neck. Now and then it paused half a beat to set its hoof on a firmer patch of ground. Its ears still held north. The wind blew against us, the ash scent trailing a long way before it thinned. At the ranch, the afternoon light revealed every old mark. Fence posts dark brown, nails driven crooked, the barn door loose on its hinges, the tin roof patchy with bright and dull. The well sat in the yard's center, its rim lined with wood, the pulley tilted. A tin tub beside it, dented at the edge, the water only half full. Inside, the water stood, the surface cloudy with dust. A faint smell of iron. He didn't put it in the common pen, chose the post beside the well, where the ground cracked wide and the tree's shadow was short. Once the rope was wrapped, he checked the nut, said nothing. The $1 coin on his saddle ring swayed very slightly as he bent. A sound like a grain of sand dropped in an empty bowl. I tilted my ear and almost missed it. The donkey stood, head slightly lifted, nostrils flared, breathing in the day's last cool rising from the well mouth. It didn't pull the rope, only shifted weight between its forelegs, as if testing which spot hurt least. He pulled the tub closer, tilted it so the water rolled to the rim, didn't force, left it there. The horses in the pen looked over, then went back to picking up. Night came earlier than usual. No moon. The wind didn't rest. I lay in the small shed 2 fences away from the well post, the window open a crack. Wind slipped through, carrying the smell of damp wood and rust. The sound of rope on post, the faint tap of hoof on dirt. Not the sound of restlessness, the sound of something keeping itself awake. The horses were still as stone. Sometimes one swatted at flies, the swat stopping halfway, falling like a dry branch. The donkey didn't lie down. Its shadow leaned long with the shifting wind, joining the post's shadow, then pulling apart, then joining again, ears up. Each time the wind shifted slightly, its ears turned with it, slow, like a clock hand catching on teeth. The water in the tub no longer rolled. The surface lay flat as scratched glass. Through the window crack, I saw a pale reflection along the tub's rim. The donkey stepped up, its muzzle near the water, didn't drink, only breathed softly. A thin ripple spread, then disappeared. It stepped back half a pace, ears still up. The night passed in very small things. A dry leaf sounding once, then still, the tarp drawing tight each time the wind pushed, the dog switching sides, breathing twice in a row. Near midnight, the air shifted with ash again. Not as strong as in the market, but there. My throat was dry. The donkey turned its head slightly north, though the wind then came in from the west. I didn't know what it heard, only that it didn't sleep. The first morning passed like that. Then the second day came. Sun harsher, wind whiter, the well mouth empty of echo. We saved water by not speaking. At noon, the slam of the feed store door sounded heavy. An old sack of bran caught on a board edge, tore a seam. Yellow grain scattered a trail into the yard, rolling until it wedged into the cracks, staying there. He bent to gather it, his hands stiff as iron jaws. Dust clung to the grains. Not all could be picked up. The dog licked a few, coughed lightly. He stood, looking at the spill line, nothing on his face. The donkey pressed its head to the lead rope of his saddle hanging on the post. The rope jerked once, snagging on the $1 ring. The ring bent slightly, the coin's edge cutting a notch in the leather, leaving a metallic tang. He freed it, careful in his motions. I heard the hemp rasp against the ring's edge. The coin darkened another shade, as if someone had brushed on a layer of smoke. The sun struck the coin's face, but no longer flashed, only held a thin sheen like cooled fat. He wiped his hand on his pants, the bran dust and dirt clinging into a dirty line. No one mentioned buying a new sack. There were 3 left in the shed. The grass crop this year was poor. That's what the Valley News said. Everyone knew cuts would come. What to cut first? Water to the edge, then stop. The donkey stepped up, its front hoof setting in the bare patch where last night's dust had been scraped away. It sniffed, didn't drink. Its ears still worked. Everything else could sleep. The ears did not. The second night, the wind surged. The barn tarp came loose at a corner. He went to tie it back. His eyes glinted red. His face stayed still. The rope on the donkey's neck was looser by 1 finger's width. I saw him ease it with 2 fingers, not letting it slip too far. His hand was warm, the rope dry. The smell of hemp mixed with sunburnt hide. On the 3rd morning, the dog skipped a meal. It circled the donkey's post twice, stopped where the rope's rubbing had left a fresh scratch in the wood. It sniffed the mark, then lay beside it, head turned north as if told to. By noon the 3rd day, the air was so still I could hear a single bran grain roll in a crack when someone nudged it. He dragged his own shadow across the yard, long and thin, over old hoof marks, making them seem deeper. The donkey chewed a dry straw stalk with a faint crackle, as if chewing a tasteless memory. That morning, the well's pulley groaned once, then stopped. The bucket came up light, like lifting an empty can. He looked inside, silent as the post beside him. The tin tub now held exactly half, no more. No clouds, no wind. The smell of cracked earth. He didn't go to the donkey first. He carried the tub into the pen, set it in the center. The horses crowded, drinking fast, necks shoving. Spray clung to their coats, then vanished. The gulping sound thick. One lifted its head, tongue licking its lip, eyes round. He pulled the tub out with exactly half remaining, no more, no less. Set it back beside the well post. The donkey stood waiting, didn't look toward the tub, didn't search the man's hand. Its ears stood, then lowered 1 notch. He stepped back, leaving space for air to pass between 2 living things. The donkey lowered its head. Its muzzle touched the tub's rim. It drank, not gulping. Each small sip, the throat rose once. I counted 7. After the 7th, it lifted its head, breathing through its mouth. A drop of water slid down the dust line along its jaw, cutting a clean, thread-fine path. The drop fell to the ground, soaked in instantly, left no mark. He put his hand on its neck, right where the rope usually lay. The skin, warm enough, didn't stray. It didn't. Maybe dust had sealed it. Maybe luck cooled like iron after fire. No one checked. Around here, people rarely explain such things. The horses were completely still. One rested its head on the rail, eyes closed. The dog stood, then lay down again. I put my hand on the fence post, skin on a splintered spot, sharp to the touch. I pulled back, saw a white line across my palm. No blood. A moment later, the white vanished under new dust. The sun climbed another notch. The post's shadow shortened. The donkey's shadow shortened with it. But its ears still stood, like two dull knives stuck in the air. He'd brought out a few scraps of straw, set them a short distance from the tub so it wouldn't swallow too soon with its throat still dry. It didn't eat right away, only sniffed. With the care of one who has learned too many ways to lose. I stayed outside the fence. Didn't ask. Didn't add words. Didn't play the sage. What was in front of me was enough. The dry well mouth, the dented tin tub, the crack in the earthen basin, the torn feed sack, the scattered grains on dry ground, and a $1 coin darkening in silence. Those things spoke louder than any verse about kindness or fate. By midday, the wind returned, weaker. It circled the post like the night before, but less cold. The donkey closed its eyes for a short beat, opened them at once. Its ears never fully lowered. The horses breathed evenly. He sat on the barn's doorstep, hands planted, back straight, eyes fixed somewhere level with the rope. Didn't go home. Didn't head to town. Just sat. His shadow cut across the posts, two uneven halves. By afternoon, he repeated the pour at the tub's rim. Exact amount. No more, no less. The donkey drank, like in the morning. Small sip, slow, pause, another small sip. I thought it would drink to the last drop. But it stopped before. What was left was a thin layer gleaming like metal's sweat. He didn't pour it away. Pulled the tub a little aside, left it there. By night, besides the tarp's rustle and the rope's scrape, I heard something else. The sound of fine sand rolling into the well mouth. Road. The door stuck, wood rubbing wood with a rough sound. The notice board hung crooked, one corner pinned with a rusted nail, its cardboard wet in spots, wrinkled in others. The smell of oil ink mixed with damp rope. On the counter, a glass jar of tacks. Inside, a few dead flies stuck wings to the glass. The postman held a pale blue sheet, typewritten with scattered letters. Grass in the valley infected. Avoid cutting. Stock refusing feed. Report to the authorities if white spots appear on tongues. He set the sheet in the center of the counter, pressing it down with a stapler so it wouldn't blow. His finger traced a black mark on the wall map, the valley stretching like a dried ink line. "Bad down there," he said low, eyes on no one. Someone grunted, someone clicked their tongue. The man stood in the doorway light, hat brim low, hand holding a small sack of nails. He asked nothing more, just slid his thumb along the bag's edge, listening to the rasp of hemp on nail. I wheeled my cart out, gravel crunching under tires. He was a few steps ahead, stopping at the porch. The $1 coin looped on the saddle ring stuck out halfway, dusted like a half-closed eye. In the sun, it gave no shine. It breathed slow with the scent of cold metal. He touched it with 2 fingers, didn't wipe, then put his hand in his pocket, stood still. A gust came under the eaves, lifting the blue notices corner to show the line advising herders to keep their stock from the low pastures for now. He looked, didn't nod, didn't shake his head, turned away. By evening, the ranch lay still as a dropped net. The barn was half closed. He didn't take the herd far. Gathered the horses into the high pen, clipped each one, their mouths wet at the corners, nostrils swelling and collapsing, hot breath spilling into a thin veil and fading. He hung an old carved wood sign on the barn door, closed. The hammer sank deep into the wood, leaving a darker circle around the nail. He braced an old ladder inside, in case the hinges gave. The donkey was still at the well post. Rope loosened another notch. The water in the tin tub, not yet half, surface dulled with dust. Its ears stood, then slowly turned north, same as every night before. No one told it to. Its narrow breath measured the air, finding it unchanged. The sunburned edge of its neck fur stood out in a rough line. By night, the dark wasn't complete. In the smell of fire along its rim, like a mouth clamped shut. The sun was gone, only a red band in the north, growing. A blast somewhere. Not loud, just enough for the horses in the pen to raise their necks. He shoved the barn door, his hand finding the ropes. No command, only the way he lifted his arm, higher than usual. Red dust slapped into my eyes. I blinked hard, tears cutting clean lines through the blood dust on my cheeks. In the red light, the horses' backs shone like lamp wicks soaked in oil. They surged, their manes standing with the wind. He opened the east gate, blocking with his back, so the first ones could burst out. Hooves drummed on dry earth. Rope ends snapped from posts. He tapped the third in the rump to keep it from slipping back in. I pulled the side fence shut, hooked the latch into the second hole, my hands shaking like a child learning to write. The fire itself was unseen, only its shadow, a dark red smear crawling along the tree line. The wind poured down from the north, hot dust wrapping the yard like a heavy coat. Above, the ash drifted into stray white streaks. My eyes stung, my throat tasted of salt. The dog barked twice, short, then went quiet, circling for lower ground. It slid under the wooden table by the well, lay still, breathing tight. He drove the herd through the east gate, turning them toward an open stretch with few trees, where the wind would slow the fire. The hoofbeats sank toward the hollow, then rose again on a bed of gravel. His back was soaked through. His shirt held the red dust, the wet parts darker red. He looked back once, his eyes touching the well post. The donkey was there. It didn't panic. Its ears turned, then held, pointing into the dark gap between two fence posts where grass didn't grow, because the earth had slid. He walked 5 more steps. I counted. He stopped, didn't turn fully back, didn't go fully on. A stray horse brushed his thigh, head pressing his hip for direction. He patted once, pushed it into the group, cleared the way. The $1 coin on the saddle ring gave a thin chime when he turned. The sound died at once, swallowed by the wind. His back disappeared with the herd into the dust. I stood in the yard, hearing the well breathe hot. On the tin tub's surface, a scrap of ash drifted like an ant's body. I drank, felt my tongue drier than before. The donkey tugged the rope once, not yanking. It turned itself in small steps until the rope pulled tight as a fiddle string. I heard the hemp strands rasp against each other, laugh for a cool draft to come through, carrying damp from somewhere lower. The donkey sniffed straight into it. Its muzzle twitched, one nostril darkened with dust. Its cloudy eye opened a grain of light. It pressed the rope against the fence, its neck angling square to the post, as if taught. No one had taught it. On the far slope, the fire crackled. No roar, only the sound of countless dry leaves breaking. The ash fell thicker. The flakes lay neat along the donkey's back like fish scales. I brushed one from my hand, cool first, hot after. My nose felt heavy, as if packed with sand. For a moment everything held: tarp, closed board, ladder, tin tub, coin, dog, me, the silence about to snap. The donkey shifted again. The rope cut a fresh line in the post. The wood spilled fine dust, clinging to the hemp white as salt. The loop at its neck pressed deeper into the patch of shed hair, leaving a dark groove. I could have reached and undone it, but I didn't. Not yet. Not for lack of wanting. Because the herd was still out there, the barn door still open, the wind shifting 5 times a year, without anyone counting. I stood, hearing my own heart count for my head. A tearing hiss crossed the yard. The tarp pulled free of its nails, flew, then wrapped itself around the fence foot. The fire wasn't here yet, but it wasn't far. In that moment, cold air slid through the ground crack and struck my ankle, like a stray cat brushing past. I looked down. The dust at my boot toe moved opposite the wind's main flow, into the gap. Real damp. The smell of wet earth, faint under the scorch. I looked up. The donkey was looking the same way. The $1 coin tapped the saddle ring again when the wind pulled. Small sound, but clear. Like someone tapping a fingernail on a table edge, to signal without others hearing. I understood. Not with my head, with something closer to the skin. I looked toward where the herd had gone. No dust from them now, only dust from the fire. The donkey leaned slightly, not enough to call it pulling, just to test if the rope would take one more beat. The rope answered with a sigh. Its eyes no longer sought north. It looked straight at the ground crack under the fence, a narrow way, enough for a small body. I reached for the knot. My fingertips touched the dry hemp, a shiver in them. I stopped. The fire popped far off. The wind swung halfway round. The ash drifted left. The damp from the crack, its ears no longer listened north. The yard had narrowed to the rope's length and the crack's depth. Behind, the empty barn, the ladder leaned, the closed board still. Ahead, a slide of earth into somewhere darker, cooler, maybe damp. No word small enough could pass into this moment without breaking it. He pressed his palm to the knot. His skin was rough, the calluses like pebbles stuck to his hand. His thumb slid lightly, testing which strand would give first. I heard the rope make a small pop. Not opening. Agreeing. In the north, a red patch dipped. Red dust slapped my eyes. I didn't blink. The donkey held its neck angle, rope tight, its body leaning toward the crack the way water leans to a channel. Somewhere underfoot, a thin draft kept passing through, unhurried. We hadn't undone it. We were still standing. Beside us, the dark $1 coin was motionless, like an old eye watching the only thing in this land worth watching. A narrow way, enough for one who knows how to count each breath. The gap was so tight you had to breathe lightly to pass. My knee brushed stone. The stone was smooth as the back of a big fish long dried in the sun. The donkey went ahead. Its ears folded one notch to keep from scraping, then stood again. Its muzzle caught the reverse wind, the smell of wet earth under a skin of smoke. It stopped at a bare stone step, the face sloped, with no edge to grip. It lowered its body, shoulder touching the wall, holding balance by shifting half its weight to the hind legs. Its neck stretched, head searching for the next space. He put his hand to its flank, didn't urge. He walked close, his boot scraping stone with a heavy sound. I felt my throat catch on something I couldn't see, not from the smoke, from the width of the gap. Just then, exactly enough for a donkey's body and half a man's. We didn't speak of can or can't, we edged forward. The $1 coin on the saddle ring tapped the stone once, a thin metallic note like a fingernail on a clay cup. It stopped at once. The donkey's breath was steady, short. Each time it moved a hoof, a few stones fell, rolling until they clicked somewhere deeper. The wind from inside was cool, carrying the scent of long sleeping water. A place where the rock vaulted down pressed the donkey's neck between two cold faces. It stood still for the time it takes to feel a single pulse beat at his neck. I felt my own throat tighten, as if an invisible rope hooked the back of it. It didn't cry out, only sighed, then pushed with its haunch. The ground underfoot was softer. Fine mud clung to boot edges. A small sound of water, from somewhere, entering a fuller place. The donkey lifted its ears, set its hoof on a dark patch of earth that didn't sink. The wind shifted from a light cool to a clear damp. The choke stayed behind us, as real as a stone just slipped past the shoulder into a wider place. Behind us, hoofbeats came in turn, not hurried. The first lowered its head, tested the ground. The next stepped into the first's prints. The herd took the narrow way like passing through a needle's eye. They reached a round hollow wedged between two rock flanks halfway up the hill. At its center, water seeped from a crack, pooling into a small basin, its rim worn smooth from old visits we'd forgotten. The donkey didn't push in. It stood, angled, giving the herd room to step down. Its ears flicked twice, then stilled. It bent its head, sniffed the water's surface, then looked up. He brought the tin tub over, set it on the basin's edge, tilted so water ran a ribbon into it. The tub made a low sound against stone, didn't break. The water rushed in, murky at first, clear at the end. The herd drank first. The swallowing ran down their throats. The cords under skin rising, then sinking. The scorch smell thinned here, ash clinging to their coats, slid into gray rings along the basin's rim. The dog had followed at some point, tongue out, drank 3 gulps, lifted its head, licked its lips. It lay down in the mud, belly to ground, breathing low, blinking slow. On the bank, short grass from some other season grew among the rocks, stalks pointed, wet from old rain, not dead. He used the lid of a broken tin to scoop for the donkey alone. It took each lidful, drank slowly. The rim cut a thin line into his thumb, the blood welled, red as millet, then mixed into the water, gone. He didn't pull his hand back, just used another finger. The $1 coin swung on the saddle ring, rimmed with uneven ash. When he bent, it caught a pale glint on the water's surface. Not bright enough for light, just enough to prove it was still there. The smell of doorstep lay flat as if a heel had kicked through something already failing. The fire's shadow was gone. Its smell stayed in the wood. The yard's well was no longer a well. Its mouth filled with ash, level to the wooden rim. Fine ash slipped through my fingers, leaving a black line under the nail. The pulley hung slack, the rope burned through halfway. Its end curled like burnt roots. The tin tub was warped. One corner darkened as if kiln fired. When he touched it, the rim left gray powder on his fingers. The closed board clung by one corner to its nail. The letters NG charred into a meaningless mark. The ladder in the barn had sagged. The third rung snapped, jutting like a rib. The rope at the well post was burned through. The loop that had cinched the donkey's neck shrunk, stiff. On the post's top was an odd gleam. He stepped closer. The $1 coin, left on the saddle ring when we'd gone, now lay under the post, half buried in ash, half showing its edge. The silver rim shone, as if the fire had licked it clean of dust. The rest was dark, holding the smell of smoke like skin after the stove. He picked it up. The coin was cool. Strange. He turned it twice, didn't wipe it. Then slid it into the chest pocket of his shirt, the pocket long stained with sweat. On the ground, the herd's hoofprints from yesterday overlaid today's burn marks. In places, the burn cut the prints clean, like someone crossing out a word with thick ink. The dog sniffed under the collapsed table, barked once, stopped. It found nothing to carry out. From the yard's corner, I picked up a half-burned piece of rope. The hemp strands had frayed to fuzz. A touch sent them falling away. I let it drop. It fell to dust, joining the rest of the ash, indistinguishable. No one tallied losses out loud. Some things here no longer had names to call them by. We walked along the east fence, where the herd had escaped. The hoofprints thinned. A few stopped, turned, as if something had made them think again, then forced them on. I saw no carcasses, only gaps. Gaps linking one to another, wider than any trench a man might dig. At night, he counted, with chalk on the doorpost. He drew each line. Smoke rain didn't wash the chalk away. He stopped before his hand was done. The lines missing didn't need to be drawn. They only needed their own space. Salve. Passing the bridle hanging there, he didn't reach. The bridle stayed, like a question that didn't need answering. In the afternoon he divided the hay left. The horses ate. The donkey chewed slow. He stood a stride away watching its mouth work, counting the beats, not to control, only to be sure there was still a beat. The first morning after the fire, he stood in front of the donkey while dew was still beads on the wire. He opened the tin with his nail, the salve's sharp scent faint. He took a bit, set it on the scorch, the skin under it warm. The donkey didn't flinch. It breathed out a short breath. He rubbed not in circles, only with the lay of the hair, from low to high, light as brushing dust. His thumb stayed longer than the other 4 fingers, like a brace, keeping the touched spot from stirring. No, good. No, hold on. When he was done, he capped the tin, put it away, stood another beat with his hand still smelling of it, letting the wind take some. Next day, the same. No less, no more. Instead of taking the donkey to draw water, he carried 2 pails from the hollow on the hill, shoulders bruising into 2 dark lines. The old tin made its familiar sound. He poured the water into the cracked earthen basin, the basin that had once leaked, now didn't. The donkey drank, lifted its head. The drops, again, drew a clean line through the dust along its jaw. He watched that line vanish into the hair, as one watches a faint letter soak into paper. On the 3rd day, he hung the saddle on the post, choosing the highest hook so it wouldn't be easy to reach. The $1 coin was no longer on the ring. He kept it in his shirt pocket. When he bent to apply salve, the coin's edge tapped his breastbone with a dry sound. He didn't touch it. What needed to be in place stayed in place. On the 4th day, the scorch hadn't shrunk, hadn't spread. He sat on the barn step, opened his folding knife, shaved the edge of the tin lid smooth so it wouldn't cut his hand again. The metal shavings fell in a small line, brighter than ash. The wind didn't carry them all off. A few caught at the grass roots by the ground. He picked them up, let them fall into his palm, rubbed them away. The donkey stood facing him, watching him do it, its ears neither up nor down, between. On the 5th day, he brought back a bundle of medicine from the old vet station, dried leaves, strange smelling. He didn't read the label, propped a new post, tied it with a piece of old rope. When he was done, he turned back, looking toward where the donkey stood. The distance between them was far enough not to call. The wind passed between, carrying a faint salve smell. On the 6th day, he didn't apply salve, only set his bare hand on the scorch long enough for his skin to match its warmth. The donkey breathed one breath longer than usual. He pulled his hand back, rubbed his palms together, the salve smell still caught under his nails. He didn't wipe it on his pants as other times. He carried that smell around the yard, measuring each burn mark again, noting where to drive more nails, where to leave gaps for wind. No one called it working, but every morning had 2 things he never skipped: touching the scorch and not putting the saddle on. Those 2 moved places in the day, 2 mute markers. By evening, when he counted the water left in the basin, he looked into it as one looks into a face. No asking, no thanking, only looking. At night, the donkey stood under the post. The scorch was a darker patch than the night around its neck. The $1 coin in his pocket tapped his bone each time he bent. That sound was enough for me to know he was close, without turning. The wind passing the yard no longer smelled of burn. only of things without names that still existed, a handprint on hair, a clean line through dust. The silver rim of a coin once licked by fire. Each was a silent sentence. Each silence a way to keep living. The $1 coin stayed on that hook a few days, its silver back to the wood, dark edge touching damp air, around it the faint trace of fingers each time he passed. That morning, he stood under the eaves for a while, right hand in his pocket, left on the doorframe, not looking at the coin, looking across the yard to the low ground newly dug. Then he reached up, took the coin, turned it once. The edge once licked by fire showed half bright, half smoke-stained. He didn't wipe it, just put it in his shirt pocket, the pocket with a loose seam at the edge. The coin touched his bone with a small sound. He crossed the yard, hat brim low, left shoulder heavy from a night of damp wind. I followed, a fence away, hearing mud split under his boots. The dog lay under the broken ladder, lifted its head once, then set it down.
The donkey stood by the old post.
Its ears lowered one notch, trembling lines. He sat at the rim, tested the ground's hold with his heel, then let the bucket drop. The sound of it meeting water was round, like someone striking a note inside a clay cup. At night, he counted with chalk on the doorpost. He marked each line. Smoke rain couldn't wash the chalk away. He stopped before his hand was finished. The missing lines didn't need to be drawn. They only needed the space they left. By morning, only a few heads were sticking out of the corral fence. Their eyes no darker than usual, but they moved less. The donkey stood close to the post, not pushing in, ears down. The scorched mark on its neck showed clearer in dry weather. A reversal into silence. The thing bought for $1 still here. The things that used to be assets, gone. He opened the shed. Inside, a few bags of bad feed, a worn shovel, a clump-hardened sack of damp salt, and a dented tin of old veterinary salve. He didn't take a saddle, didn't hang gear on the donkey's back. He took the salve tin. When passing, the bridle hung there. He didn't reach for it. The rope stayed where it was, like a question that needed no answer. By afternoon, he divided the hay that was left. The horses ate. The donkey chewed slow. He stood an arm's length away, watched its mouth chew, counted the rhythm. Not to control, only to be sure there was still rhythm. The first morning after the fire, he stood before the donkey while the fog was still small, wet specks on the fence wire. He pried the salve tin open with a fingernail, the smell faintly acrid. He took a bit, laid it on the scorched patch. The skin under it was warm. The donkey didn't pull away. It let out a short breath. He rubbed not in circles, only along the hair's lay, from low to high, light as laying dust. His thumb stayed longer than the other 4 fingers, like a wedge, keeping the spot just touched from shifting. No good boy. No hang on. When done, he shut the tin, put it away, stood one more beat with the smell of salve on his hand, letting the wind take some of it. Next day, repeat. No less, no more. Instead of leading the donkey to haul water, he carried 2 pails from the hollow on the hill, shoulders darkening into 2 stripes. The old tin buckets gave their familiar note. He poured into a cracked clay trough, once leaky, now sealed. The donkey drank, lifted its head, and the water drew a clean line down through dust along its jaw. He watched that line fade into the opened a folding knife, scraped the tin lid's edge smooth so it wouldn't cut his hand again. Metal shavings fell in a small line, brighter than ash. The wind didn't take them all. Some clung to the grass roots near the ground. He picked them up, let them fall back into his palm, rubbed them away. The donkey stood facing him, watching. Its ears neither pricked nor drooped. Midway. Day 5, he brought a bundle of herbs from the old vet station. Dry leaves, strange smell. He didn't read the label. Took them exactly as handed. He steamed the leaves over the rim of a hot water drum, dipped them in, wrung them out, wiped them around the scorched patch. Moisture beaded on the hair into pinpoints. He blew lightly so none fell into the eye. The donkey half closed its eyes, then opened them again. He set his hand over the spot he'd wiped, kept it there. By noon, he was out mending fence without the donkey. The lead rope still hung. Where a rail was broken, he propped a new post, tied it with old rope. When done, he looked back toward the donkey's place. The distance was too far to call. The wind passed between them, carrying the faint smell of salve. Day 6. He didn't apply salve, only laid his bare hand on the scorched patch, long enough for his palm to match its warmth. The donkey breathed, longer than usual. He withdrew, rubbed his hands together, the salve smell still under the nails. He didn't wipe it on his pants like before. He carried that smell around the yard, checking each burn mark, seeing where nails needed driving, where gaps should stay open for wind. No one called it work, but each morning there were two things he never missed: touching the scorched patch and not putting the saddle on. 2 mute markers in a day. By evening, when counting the water left in the trough, he looked into it as if looking into a face. No asking, no thanks, just looking. At night, the donkey stood under the post. The scorched patch was a darker mass than the night around its neck. The dollar in his breast pocket tapped his bone each time he bent. That sound alone told me he was close, without me turning. The wind through the yard no longer carried the burnt smell, only the scent of things still unnamed but present, a handprint on hair, a clean streak through dust, the coin's silver edge once licked by fire. Each was a silent line. Each silent line, a way to keep living. The $1 coin had sat on that post for days, its silver back against pocket, the one with the frayed seam. The coin tapped bone with a soft sound. He crossed the yard. Hat brim pulled low, left shoulder sagging from a night of damp wind. I followed a fence away, hearing mud split under his boots. The dog under the broken ladder lifted its head once, then set it down again. The donkey stood by the old post, its ears lowered a notch, like someone done with night work. It watched him, unmoving. Only its nostrils shifted, measuring the water's scent. The new well lay astride from the old one, in a shallow between 2 slabs of rock. Dark rings of soil spread from its mouth, like stacked brown plates. No pulley, only a new tin bucket and clean hemp rope. The water, far below, held a fine scratched sky. On its surface, sunlight film thin as cooled grease. When he leaned, the gold streak slid, pulling tiny, trembling lines. He sat on the edge, tested with his boot heel, then dropped the bucket. The sound of it hitting water was round, like a note struck in a clay cup. At noon, the sun's film returned on the well's mouth, thinner because the sky burned less. It drifted into two lines, met at the bucket's corner, parted at the rim. A water spider stayed still, legs spread, its shadow like a thin star. He looked for a while, then turned away. I looked longer, not to give it a name, because there was nothing else that needed doing more than looking. The donkey stood still, ears held their line. By afternoon, clouds thickened again. Wind from the gap came early, carrying the smell of wet stone. The silver dollar on the post said nothing. It only stayed there, flat, low enough for a child's hand to reach, high enough for a grown man to miss. Sometimes the coin caught a lone thread of sky, pressed a faint stripe onto the donkey's hide, then let it fade. That was all. At night, lightning ran in the east without sound. He slid another bolt into the door. I counted in my head the things still here: a new well with the sun's film at its set hour, a fence post with a nailed silver dollar, a donkey half closing its eyes, ears always set far, a wind that knew its own road. What was lost no longer had a name. What remained asked for none. They stood in the yard, each in its own place, not cutting across the other's silence. Through the night, water dripped from the roof into the dented pail, each still nailed to the post. The sun's film on the well came at its hour. The wind from the rock gap went and came on its own order. And we, me, the man, the animal, stayed in our places, the way a scar lies in flesh, not showing off, not gone, only reminding by its silence. In key 60 half-doln nailed to a fence post, still going and coming by its own road. The donkey's ears still point